So we know that during the course of writing a movie, many things change in regards to many aspects, from what characters you're including to subplots to even sometimes main characters. This of course happens in Hollywood all the time, and specifically with these bigger comic book movies, it's more or less become commonplace when things change that you're going to add or subtract one thing or another. Well, as it recently turns out, while they're hyping up Ant-Man and the Wasp, we did recently learn that Captain America Civil War originally featured a much larger role for Ant-Man before Marvel Studios got their hands on Spider-Man. So essentially what happened is, during the course of writing and rewriting and reworking all of the things that were happening in Civil War to get to the final draft, one day the writers were very hard at work. Kevin Feige walked into the room and told them to stop what they're doing, and he gave them the Spider-Man thwip, which means that they officially got Spider-Man, and they just started laughing because they were all waiting for this. So essentially then they talk about how excited they were and what they had to do and what the plan was. And originally it was going to be Tony Stark going after somebody else, which would have turned out to be Ant-Man. So I think you can kind of see how that would have worked, and ultimately Ant-Man where he would have ended up anyway, probably betraying Tony. But when they ended up getting him, they decided to write all that out and replace that scene with Spider-Man getting recruited and of course joining the battle, and then the rest is history. And then when asked specifically about how this would have worked, essentially what the scene was it was Scott sitting down and he was watching his daughter play soccer, and this is when he was approached to join Tony's team. But ultimately they did have a contingency plan, which ended up being Spider-Man, just in case the talks actually went through and things were approved. And when everything was approved, they already knew how they wanted to do it. So Scott's whole role was essentially reduced to what we got. Spider-Man was put into place, and they wanted to make Tony a mentor to somebody anyway, so they perfectly had a lead in right there. And honestly, I'm glad that that kind of happened, because I really liked the extent of Scott that he had in that movie, and I don't think I would have wanted any more of it. Despite the fact that I really love the character, I think what we had was perfect, and how his story is going to carry over just by looking into Ant-Man 2, I think just perfectly leads from one to another. So I'm glad with the way things turned out, considering, well, we got Spider-Man in the MCU.